Now you might be feeling a little bit of deja vu watching this, I'm afraid, if you saw the video I did on the last solar generator or power station, whatever you want to call it. Didn't set out to be a review of these products, but PowerOak sent me this when they saw the one I did on the Ecoflow Delta. This is the PowerOak AC200P, and the P stands for phosphate LiPo 4 battery bank, which is the safest chemistry out there for batteries. So that's a really good thing, and it's got lots of cycles. So I want to go through a little bit more on why these things I think are really good on a boat. I mean, they're sort of meant for RVs, remote cabins, that sort of stuff, but it fits in really well with what we're doing on boats because it's got, especially this one, really high powered DC output. And also, there's something in the pipeline that I've seen when I did the research on these that's coming up that might actually prove to be a complete slot-in for your house bank. So, if you were thinking of repowering, as we are with LiPo 4 batteries as your house bank, you might scrap that idea completely and actually slot in, a bigger unit. They do huge things of this, and it supplies everything. But before we get to that, I'll do that at the end. We'll do a bit of comparison as well. I just want to go through some of the features of this model. As I say, made by PowerOak. It's the Bluetti AC200P. It's got twice the usable power of something like the Ecoflow, but of course it's huge and it's heavy. I mean, you can barely lift it, really. I mean, you can with two hands, but you're not going to be skipping off down the jetty like I did with this, with a power tool to do a little bit of work. But it's not meant for that. It's meant for different things. This is a real powerhouse that you could have in maybe a small boat as the only form of AC power. It's got a built-in inverter. It's got a built-in MPPT controller. So you can plug it into solar, and it'll take a lot of solar, this one. It'll take 750 watts of solar, which is amazing. I mean, you could have this in a cabin hooked up to a large panel or a couple of panels. We'll go into that later, but it needs quite a high voltage, this one. But it'll take a lot of power from solar. So you could be permanently running a small AC unit maybe in a cabin. They typically take sort of between 500 750 watts, and this can be putting in 750 watts from the solar, so it's self-generating. So it's brilliant for that. So let's go through some of the points for this. Anyway, it's got a really nice high quality power button on here. It makes a little whirring noise, and then the display comes to life. You won't be able to see it. It's really bad in daylight. It's not good for that, but I suppose it's not going to be outside really when you're doing this. We'll go through it inside. It's very comprehensive. You can go through pretty much everything through the menus of this and interrogate it. It's also got two charging panels on top for phones. It'll take iPhone, it'll take Android, up to 15 watts. But I think the real strength of this is its inverter. Two AC outputs here. I think there's more on the American version. Obviously they do a European American versions of this, but it's rated 2,000 watts, but it'll do a peak load of 3,800 watts for a very short period, and it'll do 2,300 watts for several minutes. So it's really good, best in field really for the inverter here. It means you can run your kettle and your toaster, or your hair dry, all that sort of stuff. It's really just not going to blink at that sort of thing. And we'll go through later when we talk about these sorts of units compared to the boat's inbuilt system, why inverters built in are actually really good, a really good thing, because you can use all that power. Other things it's got on here. 4 USBs. I mean, they're not quick charge ones, but they're pretty good. 3 amps at 5 volts, so that'll keep your iPad going, all that sort of stuff, no problem at all. It's got one USB-C type unit, which is great, 60 watts. So a lot of, the MacBooks come with those now as chargers, so you could plug that straight in there, and it'll keep up with it while you're, working, while the computer's working hard. It's not gonna fail like some, other 12-volt systems do. They don't quite keep up. So that's really good to have that. So of course it's got the ubiquitous cigarette lighter type output. Yeah, I mean, you charge up to 10 amps in there. I find, you don't want to put high current through these things because they don't really cope with it that well. A couple of 12-volt outputs here as well at 3 amps, so things that you'd normally run through a transformer, you might be able to run directly from this. This they call an aviation plug, I think. It's a really good unit, actually. I think you want to see more with things like this. It's rated 25 amps, 12 volts. And it's great because it means actually with a small boat, you could use this to power the whole boat. You know, if you've got something that you think, okay, I want to put a house bank on this boat and I need to buy maybe some solar, an MPPT controller, you need to buy an inverter separately. Well, the cost of this is going to be much cheaper than doing all that, because you can just have this as your house bank, plug this directly into the bus bar for the 12 volt for the boat, because it'll easily power a small fridge and a freezer and your lights and all that sort of stuff for a small boat. Absolutely fine. It's got the inverter inbuilt. It's got an MPPT inbuilt, so all you've got to do is buy the panel and plug it in. So yeah, I mean, this could be an amazing thing to have. Of course, it's heavy. You've got to find a way of strapping it down. We've got to do that in here. At the moment, it's just sitting on the sole next to the steps down below, and we use it in the galley for stuff. But obviously, before we go out to sea, this has got to have a way of holding it down in case of a knockdown, because you want this flying around. But yeah, the inputs has the same connector. I'll show you some of the leads that come with it. It also has this enormous brick as a mains charger. The one in the Ecoflow is all built in. Is a really neat unit for something that you just want. That's, you know, you can have in a cupboard somewhere that does everything really nicely. This is the one. But this is, you know, much more for, you know, big power needs. But you do have to have space for stuff like this. I mean, we don't really use the mains, you know, that much, so this is just go in a cupboard somewhere and be dragged out the odd occasion. We may be in a marina and want to charge it up quick, but you know, that's that. But I'll show you, because obviously you do get the plug, the aviation plug. They use this as an input as well as the output on there. So I'll just plug it in. So this has a little dot on it that you line up, and you just push it till it clicks. And then it's in there. It's, you know, it's solid. It's not gonna fall out while you're bashing through the wave. So, you know, it's not like a cigarette lighter that'll just fall out at the, you know, merest thing. This is great. You can have that, and as I say, you could have just one of these leads and cut it off and wire it directly into your bus bar, and it, you know, power a small boat, no problem at all. But this actually comes with one of these, which is an XT90 on it. I'll show you when we go down below. I've actually organised a way of charging automatically when I've got a charge, either from the alternator or from the solar, these units. So it can charge this, it can charge the Ecoflow, or it can charge the outboard engine. I've got an electric outboard, so it charges that. And these are much better. I'll show you why. This is the plug that came on with the Ecoflow Delta, actually, and you know, you leave it plugged in for too long, it's taking 10 amps through, it gets hot and they melt. So they're just not up to it, which is why I've changed, well, one of the reasons I've changed mine. I've actually used XT60s, which are fine. XT60s take 60 amps, and as I say, this is only taking 10. These are XT90s, they can take 90 amps. I mean, they've just used them because they're more chunky and bigger, easier to use, I suppose. Had I known, I would have put an XT90 in the system that I built, but it's before I got this. But yeah, what this comes with is that as an input, and then you can plug different things into this. So obviously they have got the ubiquitous way of charging it through this, but as I say, don't charge it for forever on this, because, I mean, I don't know, it might be better quality than the other one. It looks the same, so this would probably melt if you use it for too long as well. So I would find another way of doing it. As I say, what I've done, you'll see below, is chop it off and put an XT60 on the end of mine, and that plugs directly in. But that's, you know, that's a really good system, and it has, if you want it for solar, you just unplug that one, plug in this one, and you've got your MP4s on the end of there that plug into any solar. Now, the solar for this, if we look at our array, I mean, I've got the big bifacial panel up there, which is putting out about 405 watts, which is fine. It can take that, no problem at all. It can take 750 watts, but it does need quite a high voltage. So one panel on its own, even a big one like that, that's not putting out quite enough volts for it. You'd need a couple in series. The other two panels I've got, they are already wired in series for the boat, so I could just unplug them and plug it in. It's just a quicker way of charging this, because if I'm charging this from the boat through this, then I'm limited to 10 amps that it's going to take in. So obviously that's, you know, 120 watts is the maximum it's going to do at 12 volts. So if I'm doing it through solar, I can do 750 watts, so I can charge it quicker. So on days when your house bank is full from those, I could just unplug the two that I've got in series there, it's just two plugs straight into here, and charge it directly from the panels, and it'll charge faster if I wanted to do that. If I had this as my house bank system, it would be in there, and I'd be using this completely. And on that point, I mean, for cost, I've had to recently buy an inverter for this boat, and I bought one from Mastervolt. It cost me £800. It's not the top of the range. I'm not even sure if it's as good a pure sine wave, because I know, because I've seen the tests on this, it is a really good pure sine wave that this puts out. Same as the Ecoflow Delta, they're all very good, high quality. This really expensive one I bought from Mastervolt because it's meant for boats, and they just up the price. I put in, it's rated the same as this, 2000 watts, but it won't run the kettle even on its own, and that's because of the way the boat system works, the loss that you're going to have in the lines from the inverter, because they're a long way apart. In here, the inverter is obviously right next to the battery. In the boat, they could be a long way apart, so that's really going to lose you, a lot of that power. Yes, 12 volt DC really is a bad way of moving power around, and on a high draw item like an inverter, it's the DC side you have to worry about. Here on Fair Isle, you can see we have quite thick gauge. It's 1 AWG, that's American wire gauge, but it's not enough, and that's because the batteries are quite a long way from the inverter. You can see here we've got one in the engine room, and they're split up. The other two are in the aft cabin, which isn't good, under the bed. So with this sort of run, we're not going to meet the 3% recommended loss, which is what you should be aiming for. When we redo the house bank, we'll put the new lithium batteries where the Jenny is at the moment, which will be much better. So just be aware that having enough AC power isn't all about just buying a bigger inverter. You've got to make sure your DC side is up to spec. I'll put a page on the website and have a calculator on there for wire gauge, so you can try and work out what sort of gauge you need for the run that you've got on your boat. And I'll update things as well on that Tech Corner page on the website to see how these things are going over time. So I do sort of check back there as well. An update as well on the Mastervolt, the very expensive ship's Mastervolt inverter. One of the main reasons for having it is that here on the panel you can see we've got a nice switch there to turn it on and off, and you can put the load on the inverter. I mean, that's if you're at a dock side that's got a fuse that's easy to blow, then they're limiting the current that you can have, so you can put that on so it take load off the inverter. So that's a good system if it works, and it doesn't. Even with this £800 inverter, it's got a little plug in the bottom. This is it. The plug exists on this inverter. It's there. You plug it in. It doesn't work. Rang them up and said, well, what's going on? It doesn't work. And they said, oh, yes, it's not compatible anymore, so it just doesn't work. But you can buy one for another £600 on top, £1,400. You pay another £600 for a plug that does work, so with a different unit. So I'd have to swap the unit out for one that's £1,400. I really don't know how these companies can live with themselves and get away with things like that, but that's what some marine companies do, unfortunately. Back to the Bluetti then, and it lives normally just down here by the companionway steps, and when we're on passage we can push it back into the cupboard behind it and keep it securely in there. But I'm going to probably put a charging point on this side for it especially, but I've got one already on this side which is automatic for charging. I made a little video actually when I made that, which was going to put in an episode, but Judy vetoed it because it was too technical, so here it is. So last night's little project was just building this, which is a little box. I talked about this in the Ecoflow Delta video, I think, and the e-propulsion one as well, because it's a way of just charging those batteries. I mean, you can see now it's a sunny day, it's only 9:30 in the morning, and I'm at 100%. But the system of having this on top means that it'll be automatic. So whenever there's a charging voltage, so when you've got the sun's up and the solar is delivering 14.4 volts out of the back of the MPPT, or when the engine's running and the alternator's delivering a charging voltage, this will detect it, the little light will come on, and you'll have power into this. So basically it's just wired down through a little breaker here. It goes through the switch panel here as well on that one there, so you didn't have to put the breaker in, but it helps obviously protect the wires, and then down to the XT60 here, and it means it's completely automatic. Then I can leave one or the other just plugged in all the time and know that it's not going to be draining down my house bank, because if there's not a charging voltage there, it's this will switch off, this relay will switch off. It's only going to be on if I've got a high voltage either from the engine running or the solar. So I'll put this on and see how it works. It's done its job really well. You can see at the moment the little yellow light is on. That's meaning that there is charge available because the sun's out and the solar is producing some charge for us. So if I plug it in with the connector, we'll see we've got 107 watts going, 108. So yeah, it's about 9 amps that it's feeding at the moment. And so that'll continue to do it until the sun goes in, stops charging, then it'll stop. So it won't run my batteries down. It's a touch sensitive display that we've got here. It's a bit more fiddly than the Ecoflow Delta, but it's really comprehensive. Main screen's just showing you how much charge you've got in total, and then what's going in and out on either side if you put loads on. If I plug something in here, I've got my iPad. You can see, yeah, it's just drawing a couple of watts off the DC load, and we've got the input there. That's coming in from the solar from the 12 volt that I've plugged into the boat. And then yeah, you've got loads and loads of different settings over that you can get to on here. Let me just show you one of those. So if I go into data, BMS maintenance, you'll see here it's showing you the voltage on every single cell inside there. So it's pretty amazing how much detail you can get out of this if you're really interested in those sorts of things. Most people won't bother to look. Of course, you can be charging it with AC or DC and taking power from it at the same time. They're quite adaptable. But if you want the real technical details on this, I'd advise you to go and look at a couple of things online. Will Prowse is this guy. He's an excitable young chap.
You guys, it's charging at 1200 watts now. 1222 watts.
And he really knows his stuff. I'll put a link to him in the description. And also this guy.
Greetings, I'm Professor Hobo, and welcome to another Hobo Technos product review.
Yes, that's Hobo Tech. He's as mad as a hatter. Well, I mean, if he was British, we'd just say he was eccentric. But again, really knows his stuff. And he came up with something that Bluetti do, which is a bigger unit for this. And that's what I was saying earlier, that maybe for any boat, you could have a slot-in type arrangement. Have a look at this.
So what do I like about this monstrous EP500 from Bluetti? Well, obviously, the crazy huge battery in this thing. It's exactly the size of 4 Battleborn batteries. Now, those are also lithium iron phosphate. In case you don't know, a Battleborn battery costs about $850 a piece, unless you get some amazing deal on them. Most people pay $850 for them. So multiply that by 4, that's $3,400 worth of batteries inside this. And let me tell you right now, before you exit the video thinking this thing's gonna be like $5 grand, this is under 3,000 bucks.
So if you were just kitting out a boat and you haven't got a ship's inverter and MPPTs and things, it might be a much cheaper way of doing it, getting something like this. And actually you can put 2 of those units together to make a really big house bank and give you redundancy if one of them goes down. So yeah, there's lots of alternatives maybe for the future. So are these things really useful on a boat? Well, I'd say absolutely, yes they are, and for all sorts of different reasons. And depending on which reason you want one, which sort of model you're going to go for. For us at the moment, we've been here 4 days now at anchor. It's been nice and sunny, as you can see. It's now clouded over today. Well, on those 4 sunny days, our quite pitiful old AGM house bank has been charged by 10 o'clock in the morning, and the rest of, if I didn't have these, the rest of that charge for the rest of the day would be wasted. And now on the first cloudy day, I'll be starting to worry. Well, as it is, these are all fully charged, and this would give me probably an extra 3 days, 4 days at anchor just using the power from this. If I was conservative, a lot more than that. This couple of days. So between them, it can be cloudy now for a week or so. No worries at all. I'll get through that. It's put me through that. And whatever you're going to do with your house bank, yes, you can just get a bigger house bank, but you're never going to get a big enough house bank to take everything on the really sunny days. That would be silly. If you've got your solar and your house bank sort of aligned to about the right amount, on a really sunny day, you're always going to be full sometime around lunchtime, after lunch. So, it makes sense to try and use the rest of that power. And I think, this is just a good way of doing that, of, somewhere to put that power. If you had a generator, you might think, well, don't need one of those. I mean, our generator's broken. But if it was still going, I'd still have a use for something like this, because as it was before, we didn't have as much solar. I've only put the bifacial one on this winter. So, we had not a very good house bank, not so much solar. And I would have to run the generator twice a week sometimes. With this, I wouldn't have to do that, because I'd run it the one time that week, and while it's running, I'll be charging this as well as charging the house bank, and that's a more efficient use of the generator, better for the generator as well. We'd run it was a Whisper Gen 5 kilowatt generator, and it couldn't. The house bank couldn't take the charge quick enough. If you've got a LiPo 4 bank, then it will be able to. But if your wires are up to it, but they're probably not. So you're limiting what your generators is giving you if you've got certainly if you've got an inbuilt big generator. So it makes sense to while it's running, take all the power you can for that. Better for the generator to be under load. Diesel generators definitely, they like a bit of load. So I would be charging this at the same time, and then the next time it came round, a couple of days later, to want to use it, I wouldn't have to start it at all. I'd just use the power from this. So it would extend that period. So, good even in those circumstances. As I said, this could also be used for a small boat to do everything. And this one, the smaller one, I think is really useful as something more as a standby. If you think you're going to be a voyaging boat like we are, we're going to be in remote places, we've already had a generator break, we've already had an inverter break. Well, if that happens again on the boat, we've got a spare. This is a spare. It's a spare everything. It's a spare MPPT. It's a spare solar. For solar, it's a spare inverter, and it's additional charge for DC. So it does all that, and this is really good for being portable. It's really good for fast charging. This won't do the fast charging that this does. This will charge in about an hour and a half on mains really quickly, but because of that, its cycles are very low. This, I think I worked out before, in the sort of uses we'll have, in about 3 years' time, I'll be down to 60%, because that's what this rated at. This one is incredible on its and the cycles it can do. It does 3,000 cycles. It's rated for 3,000 cycles, down to 80%. So 3,000 cycles. If I'm probably doing it once a week on average, cycling this. So that's it's in excess of 50 years that this would be working for us if it kept working for 50 years. Doubtful in a marine environment. We'll see. But yeah. I mean, you've got no worries with the LiPo 4 for longevity for cycles. You're just not going to have to worry about that at all. So depending on your needs, I think there's probably a unit out there to suit everyone. So thanks for watching. Do please like and subscribe, and have a look at the episodes, because there'll be updates within that. And I'll probably even put a page on the website purely for these, and there'll be updates on there as well to say how they're doing and what we're using them for. So thanks for watching.